All right, guys. On today's episode, I have my friend Dan Stowell on the podcast. Dan, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. Excited to be here.
Yeah, me too, man. We've been talking about this for quite some time, so I'm looking forward to it. So Dan and I met through a mutual friend that I went to high school with, somebody I wasn't even that close with, but have talked to a little bit more after school. So if you want to talk about that or just introduce yourself a little bit, I'd love to hear more about you.
Yeah, I'm a senior studying at marketing at Michigan State University. I run a personal development brand called Nova Fusion. Probably talk a little bit more about that later. Um, I like spending time in nature, and my dog is kind of like my best friend. She's over here at my apartment with me. We walk around campus a lot. And the big kicker for me is that I have Crohn's disease and had my colon removed in 2016. But coming back to how we met, I was just experimenting with coaching with that mutual friend. And he kind of just said that what you're doing is similar to what I'm doing and that we'd probably kick it off. So I
Mhm.
just reached out to you and here we are.
Yeah, it's been good. We got to meet in person sometime, so we'll figure that out too.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so if you could, I'd love to hear more about your story, your struggles, kind of what led to you starting this personal development brand, Nova Fusion.
Yeah, so my adversity really starts before I got sick. I grew up an only child with an alcoholic father, and just that uncertainty, that daily uncertainty, has been just a constant battle for me. Um, my dad, he would get home first, and my mom last, and I was in the middle somewhere after school. So just walking in, I never knew what I was going to walk into. Kind of like whether that he was just like cooking food and blasting music or playing video games uh, in the garage with his friends drinking, or even just walking home to the kitchen and he's just like passed out spread eagle on the floor. Like I had no idea what I was walking home to every day. And that was kind of like my normal for me growing up, from like honestly as long as I can remember to like probably 10th grade or so. Um, so that was like just my normal adversity growing up for me. But with that, I felt lost with like no sense of direction. I always struggled in school, below average student, and basketball was like the only thing that I felt like I was good at the time. And I felt pressured by friends and family to like get my life together, and um, it can be discouraging, especially when like you see other people in high school and they kind of like figure out like they know what they want to do, and you just don't have the slightest clue on what direction you want to take. And I think you've kind of been in that lost state yourself, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've dealt with, my mental health struggles, which I've talked about on and off, and I know what it's like because it was like kind of like you said during college. It seems like everybody's moving forward and they have it all figured out. And it seemed to me on the outside that I did too. I was playing football, I was getting good grades, and looked pretty good from an outside perspective, but I was struggling with a lot of things, a lot of day-to-day things in the moment. So I can definitely understand where you're coming from with that. So would you say that basketball was kind of the thing that got you back on track, or what was it that kind of helped you start overcoming some of that adversity that you had dealt with?
Yeah, basketball has really been my escape from like life. Like I can just go outside in the street and shoot hoops when things are chaotic inside. Or
Hmm.
I had a rec center literally like in walking distance, less than a half mile from me. So I basically lived in the courts over there every day in the summer, especially.
Hmm.
And yeah, that was my big getaway. And I think especially like if anyone just has those daily struggles that they're going through, they need an escape a healthy escape that they can
Hmm.
go to and move their body, get their mind right, and just be with themselves.
Yeah. Well, that's for me, that was definitely working out I mean, I was playing football at the time, and I would usually go to the gym later in the day. So I was working out 4 or 5 days a week, maybe 6 days a week, and I was usually working out oftentimes twice a day, just because that was my escape. And it was amazing that even though that wasn't specifically addressing the problem, how much something like that, something that's really unrelated, can help a ton. So I think that's an important thing to mention, and I'm glad you did. So now that we've kind of talked about this, how did this really transition into the idea of starting Nova Fusion and going into life coaching?
Yeah, so the whole Nova Fusion thing, that all started when I got sick. Um, I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis going into my senior year of high school. And that's where my life really took a big turn. Like all the adversity before that was like just like some easy stepping stones compared to what I was about to face.
Mm-hmm.
And like I had no idea what I was in for with ulcerative colitis when I got diagnosed. I just knew that it was something with my gut and I was feeling horrible every day.
Mm-hmm.
And from that point, my disease was just progressively getting worse on me. And I just felt like my freedom and self esteem were just tanking downhill. Um, yeah, it was like I felt like I lost everything: my friends, family, freedom, my health,
Mm-hmm.
especially, my
Mm-hmm.
future, even. Like it was just, I felt like I was losing everything. And yeah, it was just like a really dark place for me. And like, because
Mm-hmm.
I was suicidal at that point. I got diagnosed in August, and probably November, December, that's when I like realized I had to get surgery. And I got cheated on by my girlfriend at the time. And like literally everything was just crashing down.
Right.
And I managed to pull through it because like I didn't want to be remembered as the guy that got sick and gave up, because
Mm-hmm.
people could see me on social media. I was just complaining all the time and just like really upset of like, why did this happen to me still? Just
Mm-hmm.
in a really bad mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that, I was homebound for the whole year. No medications helped. And I had my first surgery 4 days after graduation. And in between that time, I had a ostomy bag attached to me. For the people that don't know what that is, I had like my intestine was sticking out, um, just like 2 inches to the right of my belly button, the size of like half of a ping pong ball. And then I had a bag attached to that. And what that did was my stool output would just come out randomly, and the bag was there to collect it. And that was my life for like 3 months. And the only way I can describe that was hell. Just I was just so self-conscious about myself and like looking at myself every day. Didn't want to go out in public or anything, even though I was feeling better.
Mm-hmm.
I was feeling a lot better, but mentally, I was just at that rock bottom again with myself. And fast forward to when I had the other surgery, I was super excited to get that done, just to get that bag off of me. But I had some complications with that. I'm not going to get into that part, but that was going into 2017. And really, all of 2017 was just like a recovery year for me of just trial and error of eating new foods, um, adjusting to this new way of life with my body and its new functions. And then I hit one more rock bottom in 2018. Um, I got mono. Um, my girlfriend at the time, we ended up staying together, but it was good that we stayed together because I had someone to support. It was just her and my mom really that was there with me supporting. So it was,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't recommend staying together after getting cheated on like that, just because of the trust issues and all that. But
Mm-hmm.
overall, we ended up splitting and worked out for both of us, I think, because that was really my turning point. those two rock bottoms, like when I got initially sick and was going through that time, and then with surgeries, those were like probably the two hardest times in my life. And then this one happened because with that mono and E. coli, I ended up dropping my weight down to 118. And that was, yeah, that was like the lowest since surgeries. So it was just like I spent all of 2017 building my body up and adapting to this new way. And then it's just like a year later, we're gonna hit the reset button on you.
Yeah.
It was tough. And at that point, like I drew the line. I was like, enough is enough. I have a lot of time on my hands now. It's just me, and I'm gonna do this for me. And
Mm-hmm.
that's when I started going to the gym constantly because I was most upset about the weight that I lost.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to like build myself back up. I was eating healthier. I was starting to listen to podcasts. That wasn't something that I did before. Like when I was at the gym, that's all I listened to. And even when I wasn't at the gym, I was just plugging podcasts into my brain. I started reading books. The first one that I read was Own the Day, Own Your Life by Aubrey Marcus. And I don't know if you've read that, but it's
I've
just,
not.
I definitely recommend it. It's just like a great way to get your day as productive as you can. He starts with like waking up and having like a morning mineral cocktail just to
Okay, yeah.
yeah, get your body set, and then has like some productive strategies to keep you going throughout the day. And
Okay.
then some unwinding techniques so you can restart that process and then have another great day the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And that book really like it shifted my perspective to like realize that I am in control of my life and that I can have great days every day if I choose to. And I started following business accounts and again eating healthier, and I just found my spark again after
Mm-hmm.
all of these years of struggle, really.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing so much of your story because being open like that is very difficult. But I think when you share your struggles, it helps a lot of people as well. So I do appreciate that. With this, I do want to ask, would you say the book was the turning point, or was there a turning point before that? Like, was there a specific moment, or was it just that you had had enough and were ready to just kind of change and start moving forward? Because I think that's how it was for me. Like, it got to a point where I was like, okay, I'm normally a pretty happy kid and I like being happy, so I'm sick of this crap. Like, I'm just gonna do what I need to do to get myself feeling better, to get myself back on track. So I guess what did that really look like? What did that process look like?
Yeah, it was just me having enough of my own crap, really, just
Mm-hmm.
not taking control of my life. Because I think a lot of people, I mean, I was victim to this myself. Like, we wait for events to happen and then we change. And it's like
Mm-hmm.
we have the power to change before an event happens. And like we
Right.
have to go through that pain. We can avoid all
Mm-hmm.
of that. And so I did have that event in February that I decided that enough was enough, and that's when I went down the rabbit hole of self-discovery, and then I found that book, which was another turning point for me. It was like it just opened my eyes more.
Yeah. Okay. I love that quote that you said, that we wait for an event to change, but we can change whenever. Because I was thinking about this the other day. It's kind of crazy how, unfortunately, a lot of the times it takes a difficult moment in our life before we actually understand something. So, I mean, there's been times where I read a quote and I think, okay, that's kind of a nice quote and whatever, it's nothing special. But then I go through some kind of trouble, some kind of difficult moment, and all of a sudden that quote will mean so much more to me. So it's like our perspective or our lives might change based on a moment. But yet, like you said, it doesn't have to be some crazy event. It doesn't have to just, we can do it whenever. There's no waiting. There doesn't need to be this process. So I really like that. So I guess building on this idea of mindset, I got a couple more questions. What constitutes a healthy mindset? So when we're talking about this, what specifically are we looking for? And then how do we go about developing this type of mindset?
Yeah, so I think awareness of where it is you want to go, who it is you want to be. I think just getting crystal clear on that first is
Hmm.
probably one of the biggest things. Because like if you don't know where you're going, you're just not really gonna go anywhere. Like you're just
Right.
might jump on one thing and then see something else and have shiny object syndrome and go to another thing.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
I definitely have done that myself. And if you don't know where you're going, that's okay because most people don't know where they're going,
That's
frankly.
true.
And if you don't know, you can just try new things and continue
Hmm.
to try new things, and you'll eventually gravitate to something. And when you do,
Hmm.
you won't have to think about, is this the right thing? You'll just feel it and you'll know that it's the right thing. And that's where you should be putting your energy.
Right. Yeah, I think that's, I would say, one of the most important things. I usually like to say that vision is the starting point, having a goal of where you want to be. And what you said was also really important, the fact that you can try something and it doesn't have to be right. So I kind of imagine it like, okay, so obviously straight is the ideal goal, but even if you're 20 degrees to the right or 45 degrees to the left, you might be off by quite a bit, but you're still moving closer to that end goal, to that vision. And that is a process. A lot of the times you have to go through some things. I liked how you said the kind of the shiny things where you just go to them really quickly. Because when I first started, I was really into a lot of, I was into investing and things like that. And I do, in like, I'm majoring in finance, so I'm pretty passionate about that. But I wouldn't say that was where I really wanted to head down. But just starting that, I started to read more books and expose myself to other ideas. And then I jumped on something else and finally feel like through this back and forth process, I'm moving closer to that end goal. So I think that's really important. Will you talk a little bit more about Stoicism with this idea of mindset? Because I think me and you both really love Stoicism, so I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, it's a pillar of my brand, really. Nova Fusion. I don't know if you've
Hmm.
seen my logo, but I got the flames, the yin yang.
Hmm.
The Greek meander is around
Hmm.
the yin yang, and that meander actually represents Stoicism to me. And Stoicism, I got into that after a little bit after February when things really started clicking for me,
Hmm.
just through all the personal development that I was finding. And the biggest thing that Stoicism has done for me is shift my perspective, and especially to get me out of that why me mindset of
Hmm.
everything that I was dealing with at the time, and just to start making the most out of every experience and to stop feeling sorry for myself.
Hmm.
It's game over once you do start feeling sorry for yourself because you just start going down that rabbit hole. And Stoicism really helped me to accept what has happened, control what you can, because what happened in the past is the past. Like that's all history now. And so you got the present moment. That's what you're in now. You focus on that. And like, even like with your future, like, yeah, you want to have a goal about something, but you don't want to stress about how you're going to get there. Just focus
Hmm.
on the present moment. That's all you have. Make progress, take steps to get to your goal, but don't really worry about how you're going to do it. Just focus
Hmm.
on doing the work every single day.
Right. Yeah. I love that. So I think one of the quotes that my dad told me is that it is in, I can't remember who said it. It's from some book that is, I guess, way too old and not that popular, but it's a great quote, but almost impossible to find the book. But the quote is, "It is in the making that you are made." So it's in the day-to-day process that you become the thing you want to be, or that you reach the goal you're trying to reach. So I think that's one of the most important things. Going back to like the book you were talking about, what was the name of the book that you were
Yeah.
mentioning?
Own the day, own your
Yeah,
life.
yeah,
By
exactly. Right. So if you take care of the day, then eventually that end goal or that vision will just kind of manifest itself. So I love that. Oh yeah, with this, we should probably do this as well. Will you just give a very basic, I guess, Spark Notes definition or idea of Stoicism, and some books you might recommend for somebody who wants to learn more about this?
Yeah. So my definition of Stoicism would probably be that it doesn't matter what you're going through, it's how you respond. And
Hmm.
just keeping that principle. There's a quote that it's like my favorite quote, and it's by Aubrey Marcus. And he says, "Do the right thing, the rest doesn't matter. Cold or warm, tired or rested, honored or despised." And
Hmm.
just to do the right thing, have good moral character. Um, the four pillars of Stoicism are courage, temperance, justice, and wisdom. So if you can follow those four pillars, I think you'll be in good shape.
Right.
For some books, Meditations by Aubrey Marcus or Marcus Aurelius, got wrong
Hmm.
Marcuses.
Yeah, all good.
um, and then anything by like Seneca or Epictetus, I really like. And then Ryan Holiday, he has a page called Daily Stoic. That's kind of
Hmm.
like how I got introduced to Stoicism. And then I started going into more of the ancient history books.
Okay.
But that Daily Stoicism, like he just lays out basically all the keys of Stoicism for you. So you don't
Hmm.
really have to dive into those textbooks just to get like a beginner's intro to it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, I read Meditations twice in the last year or so, and it was amazing because there were some ideas I picked up on through the first time, but then once I read it again, how much more I picked up. It was crazy. Those can get pretty deep pretty quick. So I want to transition more into your experience with coaching. So with this, I got a couple of specific questions. So what is the benefit of life coaching? And then if somebody is looking to do this, looking to go to a coach, how would they go about doing this, or why would they go about doing this? And then I guess just some general advice overall.
Yeah, so I think coaching is probably best for someone that is in that lost state that we talked about before, that
Mhm.
doesn't really have a goal, and but they know they want to do something more with their life and they're just kind of like feeling unfulfilled. Or it's also for people that have a goal but they don't really know how to execute it.
Mhm.
So I think that's two things where coaching might be beneficial for somebody. um, I think the thing that separates a good coach from a bad coach is that a good coach asks questions and gets people to figure out the answers by themselves and
Mhm.
get that self-reflection going. And then not so good coaches kind of like tell you what to do. They have like their own way of
Right.
doing things, and it's like this way or you're not going to get results. It's
Mhm.
I think if you can find someone that you trust and that works with you well, um, can get you to self-reflect on your own, like deeper than you would on your own. I think that is where coaching is at its best.
Mhm.
And for where to start, it's kind of funny story for me. I was in a summit event, and there's thousands of people in there, and we're in all these Zoom rooms, so it's like a few hundred people per Zoom room just because there's so many people. And we get put out into breakout rooms, 2 3 people per room. And
Mhm.
that's where I got put into a room with our mutual friend.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And we kind of just like hit it off. We realized that we're both at Michigan State, which is crazy because like we got thousands of people in this Zoom. We get in the same Zoom session and then the same
Yeah.
breakout room. Just like the coincidence of that
Mm,
happening, crazy. And then he reaches me out to you, just the chain reaction of everything.
mm-hmm.
But I met him on a Saturday and we got our Instagrams, we connected on that. And then I was like, hey, you want to start coaching on Monday? And I've never coached before, but I had like a framework of what I've been doing for myself and what I knew I wanted to do with coaching, but I didn't put really anything together. But that was kind of like what the summit was about, was building your brand and taking action. So I was like, I'm going to do this. And so I think if you're thinking about starting to coach, you should have like some type of framework set up so you're not totally in the dark. And then you
Mm,
just got to go after it. And the good thing with that is like you can just interview people. Like if you have an idea of what you want to do, how you want to help people, you can interview people who you think might be a good client for you, and then you can find out what they're struggling with. And then if you do this enough times, you'll find the common threads of what people are struggling with, what solution that you can provide, and then you can actually build a business from there.
awesome. Awesome. That's why I've been, so I don't know if I'm going to go necessarily into the coaching side of things ever. I think I'd rather do more of the public speaking. But I was reading some books on CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and just that framework is so helpful for a lot of people. So I think that's a great place to start as well. I also loved what you said about how getting people to self-reflect. The difference between a good coach and a bad coach is that a good coach will help you to self-reflect. I think that is one of the biggest misconceptions around self-improvement in general. And one of the reasons that I really dislike that term is because, and I've done this too, so I'm being kind of hypocritical, but I think when people try to get into self-improvement, some people just want, what are the 5 keys to success? What do I have to do? What are the actual steps? And the reality is that there are no specific steps, and that most of it is going to be this internal process, this self-reflection, this growth. So I'm really glad you mentioned that as well. Oh yeah, with this, I just wanted to hear a little bit more about Nova Fusion, what your end goal is. I love one of the things on your website that you say experiences plus mindset equals growth. So could you tell us more about that as well?
Yeah, definitely. Nova Fusion, well, my website started because it didn't start as Nova Fusion.
Mm-hmm.
I started my website um, as a result of my health journey that I was going through. So from 2015 to 2019, I was kind of just taking pictures of my health journey of like my body transformations. And I was actually doing that on Fisco. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's just like a picture journal. It's like a little more low key than Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I was on there, because it was more low key. And
Right.
I ended up just making a little journal of pictures, and then I ended up updating it with more pictures and some paragraphs, and just kind of like finding the words to how I was feeling and what I was going through. Because when I was going through those experiences, I couldn't really explain it or express how I was feeling. I was just in the thick of it still. And um, all the way up until like 2019, I was doing those pictures, but probably like 2018 is when I was like shifting my perspective to wanting to do like a blog and a website to really put my story out there, just to bring awareness to IBD, people that are going through the same situation. Because just a few years before, like I had no idea what that was. And
Right.
if there was a blog out there that could help me kind of get through that, that would have made the world for me. So if I could
Mm.
help someone in that way, that was my main goal for that. And that was just, I did danstowell.co. It was just like a personal brand.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up going live with that in 2019, actually on the 3-year anniversary of my surgery. So
Okay.
I was in Venice Beach too on my first vacation, first time on an airplane. So it was just like such a surreal moment for me. Like
Mm-hmm.
I was on my Squarespace app and I pressed live on the beach to like post my website, and it was just like my mind was blown. Like
Yeah,
it was
that's
just
awesome.
crazy.
Yeah, it all came together. That's great. So I heard this on another podcast recently, and I think it's a really deep question to ask. So would you, if you could go back, change this experience? So basically go without it, or would you say that going through these troubles really made you who you are today?
Yeah, I love those questions and posts.
Yeah.
I
Hmm.
definitely keep my experiences um, because they've shaped me into who I am today. Like I wouldn't have the mindset if I didn't have those experiences. And that kind of like leads into the experience plus mindset equals growth.
Hmm.
All of those experiences are what shaped my mindset to who I am today.
Hmm.
And when I did post my website, danstowell.co, that was just like a personal brand. And I was trying to figure out like, because like I knew I wanted to get my story out there, but I didn't know where it was going to go from there. And so a couple weeks after of like figuring out, okay, where am I going to take this now? That's when experience plus mindset equals growth hit me.
Hmm.
And it's funny because like it was staring at me in the face this whole time. Like it works with anything. And um like each experience showed me a valuable lesson. Like my dad, he showed me how to adapt to situations and be more mature.
Hmm.
Homebound allowed me to like teach myself virtually and by myself. And you
Hmm.
know, we're in this COVID world now. Like I kind of got like a jump start on that. And
Hmm.
my mindset shifted in 2018, and that's when the real growth happened. So you put all those experience together, you get the mindset, you finally start doing things right, and that's where the growth comes. So for me, that was healing myself, maturing, getting these new life lessons. I did a website, um, transferred into my dream school, which I didn't think was possible growing up because I got really bad grades. Like
Hmm.
I was like a 2.0 student, and there was like there's no way that I can get into Michigan State with that.
All right.
And in college is where I built my grades up. I got like a restart in college basically, and I was able to transfer here. But experience plus mindset equals growth. Like that was the key for me.
Hmm.
And in a simple way, you can like think of it as like a job interview. It's like the interviewer is going to ask you a scenario question, which is like an experience. And then you reply with your response to that scenario, which is your mindset. And a good answer would indicate that you have a good mindset, which is good for potential growth in the company. And then maybe a bad answer would reflect a poor mindset and maybe less growth in that company. So that's just like a super simple example of how that works.
Hmm.
And overall, I just think mindset is the bridge that separates average from great.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. I don't know if you saw it, but I posted an excerpt from a book I was reading the other day. And to paraphrase, it basically said that we shoot for happiness in life. If you ask people what they want out of life, almost all of them will say happiness. But really, when people look back on their life, it's the suffering, it's the painful moments that cultivates their character. And I think that's definitely true. So from what I've seen, most people who go through really challenging situations almost, I don't know if I've ever heard a person say that they would change anything, because that mindset, that growth helps them so much. And I think that's another really important thing to talk about. But when we have these experiences, it's quickly to just write them off as bad. So if we go through a very troubling time, like you could have quickly just said, oh, this sucks, like I can't do anything, play the victim card. But really, that won't do you any good. We always think this experience is objectively bad, but really we can subjectively interpret it however we want. So even in the moment, we might not think, okay, like obviously we're not going to think, oh yeah, this isn't bad, I'm happy, yada, yada, yada. But in the moment, you can trust that it's going to work out and that something good is going to come out of it and that you might grow. And it might be hard to see that in the moment, but I think you can trust that that's going to happen. And for me personally, that might not be very clear, like the actual specific reason or the good might not be clear from the get-go. But then later on, once I get out of that challenge, it's easier to look back and think, wow, had I not gone through this, I would never have gotten this. And I think that's really something I think that's like one of the most mind-blowing things, is that the fact that you can go through all these challenges and yet get good out of it if you're open to do so.
That's how it was for my picture journal. It's like I was going through all that pain, but I couldn't express how I was feeling and where it was gonna go. But like I knew that it was gonna have a greater purpose, and
Mhm.
that was like the thing for me, is like when I was going through my pain, it's like I can either go through this for nothing, or I
Mhm.
can create a bigger purpose out of it. And a big thing of Nova Fusion is to turn your pain into your purpose. Your
Mhm.
past pain into your propelling purpose is what I like to say. Uh,
Mhm.
and because it shows us more of what we are. Like when we
Mhm.
go through a really tough time, when we're struggling like that and we have to push ourselves to places that we normally wouldn't, that's when we find the growth, and that's where we find things about ourselves that we had no idea that we were capable of. And that's kind of like the beauty of the struggle, in the sense of just finding more about yourself.
Mhm. I couldn't agree more. So before we wrap this up, I know you wanted to talk about role models, and I think that's a great topic to talk about. So, do you have any specific role models that you wanted to mention in today's episode?
Yeah, I think role models are just like another key component of developing your mindset and just reinventing your identity. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because like all these role models, you're looking up to them for a reason. Like there's something that you like about these people that probably you would like to incorporate into your life. And
Mm-hmm.
so what I like to do is just, you can list out the traits if you want, but like you can just pull traits that you like from people and put those into your identity.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, um, chronologically, my grandpa, he's been like the biggest role model for me growing up. He's been like an entrepreneur for like his whole life. And that's just always something that I wanted to do for myself. Like I see how he was living. He always dropped these life lessons for me. Like whenever we go to lunch, I'm always picking his brain just to
Mm-hmm.
like, he doesn't even know that he's dropping all these lessons. Like they're just casual.
Right.
And he's the person that I've always aspired to be.
Mhm.
Uh, Another one growing up for me is Rob Dyrdek and his cousin Drama. Are you familiar with them?
Vaguely, but yeah, yeah.
They were like, he did Robin Big and Fantasy Factory on MTV.
Mm-hmm.
I was
Yeah,
always watching those.
yeah.
What they kind of inspired me to do is like build your brand and know that anything is possible, because Rob, he built DC, Drama, Young and Reckless. And I was always just watching that from kind of like a business standpoint. Like as a
Mm-hmm.
kid, just like I was thinking about like what could I build one day and what personal brand could I make? And I eventually did it with my website, but I have like other brands that I think of too, that like a clothing brand or something like that. And just like the possibilities are endless. And he's kind of like showed me that, him and my grandpa, like if you
Mm-hmm.
work hard, you can accomplish anything.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
Another big one for me that I'll mention is Bruce Lee. He's kind of where I got the concept of fusion from.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what he did was with his martial arts, he kind of like invented his own martial arts. And how he did that was basically fighting he would just be ignorant and fight everybody, but it wasn't to be ignorant, it was to learn their ways of fighting. Because in martial arts, they don't really like to share their techniques with other people, and the only way you can do that is if you challenge someone and
Right.
you fight. So he got like a bad stigma for that, but he was just learning. And what he did was he would like learn how to kick one way, he would learn how to punch a different way, he would have a foot stance of a different way. And if you're fighting this guy, you're like what the hell? Like you
Yeah.
punch one way, you're like, okay, I see he's doing Wing Chun fist. Then he kicks something else, and it's like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And he was like one of the best, if not the best fighter ever.
Mm-hmm.
And how he did that was just absorbing good qualities from everybody else into his own system. And he's really big on like there is no system, and to honestly express yourself. He says that it's easy to be cocky and go put on a show, but it's hard to embrace who you are and express yourself honestly, be authentic.
Mm-hmm.
And just those qualities are something that I try to keep in my identity and my brand, even, and just take what I can from everywhere.
Yeah.
So
That's
I'd love to hear
interesting.
some of your role models.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to say that's super interesting. I've never heard that that's what he did with his fighting. That's awesome. So I'd say the two biggest role models in my life are my parents. So my dad's kind of, I guess, the same as your grandpa, where he taught me a lot of these life lessons. Like anytime we go out for a drive, it's always some story that just adds so much value to my life and just makes me think for the next week. And definitely, he's definitely one of the hardest workers I know. So I think that's probably where I get my work ethic from. And then my mom is just one of the most loving, caring people I have ever met. So she's just always been there for me, especially with like my mental health struggles. So both of them are probably, I'd say, the top two role models. Um, Other ones that I really look up to. So I'll say two of my friends who I've had on the show as well. So I had Tommy on the show, and he is same thing. One of the just absolutely off the wall, crazy how hard he works and how dedicated he is. And growing up or throughout middle school, throughout high school, I always worked out with him, and he was always bigger and stronger than me. So it was just like having him was just like the perfect way to try to grow, because he'd always push me. He'd always, he'd always do an extra rep, and then I'm like, oh, come on, man. And so I'd be trying to do an extra rep. I just love that about him. And then my friend Matt as well, who I've also had on the show, he has Crohn's as well, but he's just, I think one of the things that I learned from him was this idea of mindset, because he, same thing, lost a ton of weight, and he was, this super muscular kid, was in great shape, and how quickly he rebounded from that was just amazing to me. And it never was, you know never really heard him complain or anything. Like, we hung out, and then we didn't, because he was going through these struggles and he was bedridden a lot of the times, and then pretty much just back to normal. And I know he had a lot of painful moments, but how quickly he came out of that was just really inspiring. So I'd say those two guys as well. Let me get one more.
Any indirect mentors,
Just
people?
like somebody, yeah, let me see. I would say probably Les Brown. and Eric Thomas, because I think when I first started watching motivational videos, those were the two guys who they always cut clips of their videos or of their speeches and use them. So I think Les Brown and ET kind of kickstarted me into this journey a long time ago. So it's probably 10 or 11 years ago that I started watching those kinds of videos. So I think they started shaping me and showed me, you can go through all these tough times and you can come out of it. The tough times really, in hindsight, won't matter. In fact, they're probably going to make you who you are. So I think that was where a lot of this journey started. So I'd say those guys. All right, man. It's been good. It's been a good show. This went really well. So I'm happy with how this went. So I do want to ask, where can we find you? Where can we find your Nova Fusion page? I know you talked about some of that a little bit already as well, but if you want to just lay it all out here, go ahead.
Yeah. So novafusion.co is my website. I have a free downloads page on there too. No email required. It's like a blueprint to keep you on track with your goals. It's a really great tool to have in your toolkit. I'm on Instagram, Nova Fusion Co. And then my personal is Dan with double underscores in between each letter. I am working on a course though to go live in August. So if anybody is interested in finding their passion, shifting their perspective, and overall just sparking their inner flames to become an unstoppable force, let me know. Message me. I can put you on an email list and get you a special offer for listening to this podcast episode.
Awesome. All right. I'll let you have the final word as well before we end today's show.
All right, final word. I was kind of thinking about this, and I wanted to take a page or two from Earl Nightingale, Strangest Secret. And the secret is that we become what we think. And he uses this amazing metaphor of a garden and your mind. And so, there's the Bible saying that we reap what we sow. And the garden doesn't care if we plant nightshade poison or tomato. It's going to grow either way. We water them, we make sure they get light, they're going to grow. Garden does not care what we put in there, what we sow, but we will reap it as long as we tend to it. And the mind is the same as the garden, whether that's success or failure, positive or negative. We put these things into our brain, positive or negative thoughts. We tend to them. We believe in our goals. We believe that we can't do something. Whatever, the mind doesn't care what you put in there. It just, whatever you tend to, that's what happens. And so my big takeaway is to be aware of your thoughts, be positive, be patient, be persistent. And if you do that, good outcomes will happen. That's just how the universe works. It's just, I can't say any more than that. So, have a positive mindset and start going after your goals, because you have nothing to lose, but you have everything to win.
Awesome, man. I love that. What a great way to end. Well, thank you for being on today's show. I had a great time, and honestly, I'd love to do something like this again because I think it went pretty well. I mean, it's not even out yet, but I'm happy with how it went. So thank you for that.
Awesome, man. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you again for listening to today's episode of Ion Motive. Dan has a really inspiring story. It really blew me away, and he shared a lot of valuable information that we can start applying to our lives right now. If you found this episode valuable, please share it with a friend, share it with somebody you know, share it on your Instagram or your Facebook. It would mean the world to me. I love doing these interviews, and now that it's summertime, I'm looking to do some more of them. That is all I have for you today. I know this episode was released on a Thursday, but next week's episode, Ion Motive number 29, will be released on Tuesday, just back to the the normal schedule of things. And I'll see you next time on that show. But remember, until then, take charge of your being.